This is my read aloud for Chapter 7, the Gettysburg Address. The Gettysburg Address by President Abe Lincoln. This text is appropriate for 9th through 12th graders. I think students are exposed to it sooner. I think it's best used with level 10 or 11 due to its link with U.S. history and American government. I use this in 11th grade American literature in my Great American Foundation documents unit. So it's early in the year, and so I use it to teach annotation, actually. We talk about word choice or diction and overall analysis. It could also be used in an American history or government classroom, which is why I chose this as opposed to a book, because I figured it's something that, while yes, I do use it in my English classroom, it would also easily appear in a social studies classroom that is one of the content areas discussed in the chapter. So I would be able to apply the 3 practices of historians to this text. Appropriate Common Core standards that link with this text that I'm familiar with are the English Language Arts Standards Reading Informational Texts for grade 11 through 12. With this text, you can do anything. You can use key ideas and details and use them from the text to cite strong and thorough evidence to support an analysis. You can determine 2 or more centralized ideas of the text and analyze their development. You can analyze a complex set of ideas or sequence of events that are related to this text, certainly historically. You can talk about meanings. As far as craft and structure is concerned, you can talk about the meaning of words and phrases as they're used, including figurative, connotative, and technical meanings. You can analyze and evaluate the effectiveness of the structure. We talk a lot about how short it is. And then determine the author's point of view or purpose. You can integrate and evaluate multiple sources of information presented in different media formats. Honestly, the reason I leave this in there is because the way I present this, I don't read it like I'm going to in this read aloud. I've used YouTube videos. Some have been clips from Abraham Lincoln movies. There's actually one clip where various celebrities piece together the Gettysburg Address, and that's awesome to show the difference in how it sounds when you just have one person reading it versus many people with their own take on it. I think it says a lot about certainly fluency, which isn't part of this chapter, but it might be a good way to look at how reading it differently may bring a different meaning to a text. Delineate and evaluate the reasoning in seminal U.S. texts. Again, this is in a lot of times content area teachers say, well, why do I have to teach reading? Why do I have to teach writing? Well, guess what? I have to teach history. So it's across the board. Analyze 17th, 18th, and 19th century foundational documents. This is a foundational document. It's not listed there, but I figure if the second inaugural address is there, then the Gettysburg Address is as well. Range of reading, and level of text complexity. Certainly, this is an 11th grade complex enough text. Okay, I'll try to do this justice. This was delivered November 19th, 1863 at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We've come to dedicate a portion of it as a final resting place for those who died here, that the nation might live. This we may in all propriety do, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have hallowed it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, while it can never forget what they did here. It is rather for us the living, we here, be dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they here gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. The summary of this text is that on that day, the cemetery is to be dedicated to the fallen at Gettysburg. And Lincoln gives credit to the fallen for making this place sacred, not those that have set aside the cemetery. He tells his audience that the only way they can do something so important is to continue the mission of those that have fallen and fight to keep the U.S. together and free. So my big idea is, how can we properly remember those who have gone before us? As far as vocabulary is concerned, I'm well aware that there are more than these 5 words that we could focus on. We talk about score and how it means 20, and then I pull out my math and usually a calculator to come up with 87 years. Dedicate, consecrate, and hallow. We talk about how all 3 of those are very similar in meaning, but actually mean quite different things. And then finally, perish. The best practices that could be used with this, I use all 3 of these together. And again, I use this to teach some of this. Certainly, we do the close reading the first time through. Sometimes I demo a Think Aloud, but the idea, I want them reading while it's being played on YouTube. I mean, sometimes I don't even put the video up, especially when it's a clip from the movie, because it's just one voice. For annotation, I use the guidelines by Alder and Van Doren. I model how to do it on a document on the overhead. Certainly, the discussion isn't solely based on the 3 practices of historians by Shanahan and Shanahan, because my class isn't about history, it's about English. But in order to fully understand the text, we do have to identify the source, corroborate contents of text with other reliable sources, and contextualize the information. Certainly the contents of the text, it's the original text. There's not much to corroborate, but certainly we contextualize. And we talk a lot about causation. It's more talking and discussing rather than writing. But certainly in a history class, someone might ask, what is Lincoln's purpose in writing this speech? Is not just about dedicating the cemetery, which a lot of students think is the case.